God says, "Beloved soul, pause for a moment and breathe slowly before you go any further, because this message is not about creating fear inside you, it is about bringing clarity into places where confusion has been quietly growing." There has been a subtle shift around you recently, something that did not feel dramatic enough to confront but not calm enough to ignore. A tone that changed slightly, a presence that felt heavier than before, a conversation that left you thinking longer than it should have. You tried to brush it aside because you did not want to imagine negativity, you did not want to accuse without proof, and you did not want to disturb your own peace. But deep inside, your spirit registered something. It was quiet, almost unnoticeable, yet it lingered in your intuition like a soft alarm that refused to completely turn off. Beloved soul, understand this clearly: when God speaks of urgency, it is not to make you panic, it is to wake up your discernment. There are moments in life when awareness becomes protection, and clarity becomes strength. Not everyone who stands near you stands with you. Some people admire you from a distance while secretly comparing themselves to you. Some speak kindly but carry unresolved emotions beneath their smiles. And some are simply not aligned with your growth anymore, even if they once were. This is not about enemies hiding in shadows. This is about maturity revealing misalignment. It is about you stepping into a season where your inner voice becomes louder than outside opinions. Think carefully about the last few interactions you have had that felt slightly different. Maybe someone's energy shifted when you shared good news. Maybe encouragement felt forced instead of genuine. Maybe support came with subtle sarcasm hidden beneath politeness. These are not dramatic betrayals, but they are signals. And signals exist for a reason. You are not being told to fear anyone. You are being invited to observe more carefully. You are being guided to protect your emotional space without turning bitter. There is a difference between suspicion and discernment. Suspicion assumes the worst. Discernment calmly evaluates reality. God says, "Beloved soul, you have always been generous with your heart. You give trust easily. You share your plans openly. You offer support without hesitation. That is beautiful, but it also requires wisdom. When you elevate in life, not everyone rises emotionally at the same pace. Growth creates contrast. And sometimes contrast reveals hidden discomfort in others. This does not mean someone wants to destroy you. It may simply mean they are struggling with their own insecurities. But if you ignore the tension completely, you risk overexposing your vulnerabilities to people who cannot carry them responsibly. There was a moment recently when your intuition whispered something specific. It may have been subtle, but it was clear enough to register. You felt the need to hold back slightly. You felt the urge to share less. You felt the instinct to observe instead of speak. That instinct was not negativity. It was growth. As you mature emotionally and spiritually, your sensitivity increases. You begin to notice shifts in tone, body language, pauses in conversation, energy changes. These details are not random. They are information. And information gives you power to adjust wisely rather than react emotionally. Beloved soul, the identity mentioned here is not about revealing a dramatic villain. It is about confirming what you already sensed. The name may already exist in your mind. And if it does, do not rush into confrontation. Awareness does not demand reaction. It invites recalibration. You do not need to accuse. You do not need to expose. You simply need to reposition boundaries. Access to your life should match alignment with your spirit. Not everyone needs front-row access to your dreams, struggles, finances, or plans. God says, sometimes the person you feel uncertain about is not intentionally malicious. They may simply be out of alignment with your current season. And when alignment shifts, relationships naturally adjust. This is not punishment. It is evolution. The discomfort you feel is the gap between who you are becoming and who someone else is remaining. That gap can create tension. And tension, if ignored, slowly becomes distance. You have entered a stage in your life where protecting your peace matters more than pleasing everyone. That does not make you cold. It makes you centered. When you learn to listen to your inner voice, you reduce future regret. Many times in the past, you ignored subtle red flags because you wanted harmony. You chose comfort over clarity. But now, you are different. You are no longer the version of yourself that sacrifices intuition for approval. Beloved soul, this message is not a warning of harm. It is a strengthening of awareness. No one can harm what is spiritually guarded and emotionally disciplined. The real protection lies in your ability to observe without overreacting. Notice patterns. Notice inconsistencies. Notice how you feel after interactions. Peace should not feel forced. Support should not feel competitive. Friendship should not feel draining. If someone's presence consistently leaves you confused, defensive, or emotionally tired, that is data. And you are allowed to respond to data wisely. You do not need drama to create distance. Sometimes silence is enough. Sometimes reduced access is enough. Sometimes simply keeping your next move private is enough. God says, beloved soul, the urgency in this message is not about fear of losing everything. It is about preventing emotional leakage. Your energy is valuable. Your focus is sacred. Your progress requires protection. As you move forward, be selective about who hears your next plan. Be intentional about who witnesses your vulnerable moments. Share deeply with those who consistently show integrity. The truth is, you already sensed the name. And the moment you sensed it, you hesitated to believe yourself. This message exists to validate your intuition, not to create anxiety. You are not imagining things. You are maturing. And maturity often feels like distance from those who once felt close. God says, beloved soul, now that awareness has been awakened within you, the next step is not confrontation, it is composure. The moment you sense that someone may not be fully aligned with your journey, the natural human reaction is either anger or withdrawal. But growth invites something higher than both. You are being guided into emotional intelligence, not emotional reaction. The true power of discernment is not in exposing others, it is in mastering your own response. When you remain calm, you remain in control. When you remain observant, you remain ahead. And when you choose wisdom over impulse, you protect your peace without creating unnecessary conflict. Beloved soul, there is a quiet strength in silence. Not silence born from fear, but silence born from clarity. You do not need to announce your boundaries to make them real. You do not need to prove what you sense. You do not need validation from others to trust your intuition. The most powerful shifts happen internally before they are ever visible externally. When you decide to share less, observe more, and speak carefully, the dynamic naturally adjusts. Energy responds to awareness. When you reposition yourself, others feel it even if you never explain it. Think about how many times in the past you reacted too quickly to subtle tension. Sometimes you confronted prematurely. Sometimes you ignored completely. Both extremes drained you. But now you are entering a balanced space. Instead of reacting emotionally, you are responding strategically. Instead of assuming intent, you are observing patterns. Patterns reveal more truth than isolated moments ever could. Anyone can have one off day. But repeated subtle shifts tell a story. And you are wise enough now to read between the lines without becoming paranoid. God says, beloved soul, the goal is not to label someone as harmful. The goal is to adjust access according to alignment. Some people deserve full transparency in your life. Some deserve limited access. And some simply need distance for this season. This does not make you cruel. It makes you mature. You are no longer required to overexpose your plans to those who have not proven emotional stability. You are no longer obligated to explain every decision to people who do not celebrate your growth consistently. Notice how your body feels around certain individuals. Your nervous system rarely lies. If your shoulders tense, if your energy drops, if your thoughts become defensive, pay attention. These reactions are subtle signals. They are not accusations. They are information. And information allows you to protect your inner equilibrium before things escalate. Beloved soul, you may also need to examine something gently. Sometimes misalignment is not malicious intent but insecurity. Growth can unintentionally highlight others' stagnation. Your progress may remind someone of their own unmet goals. Your confidence may reflect their hidden doubts. And instead of processing those feelings internally, they project discomfort outward. This projection does not make them evil. It simply means they are not ready to stand comfortably beside your evolution. Understanding this prevents bitterness from forming inside you. The revelation here is not about revenge. It is about elevation. When you elevate, not everyone can climb with you. Some relationships naturally stretch, and stretching can feel uncomfortable. But you are not responsible for shrinking yourself to maintain comfort for others. Growth sometimes requires quiet separation, not dramatic endings. God says, beloved soul, remain kind but not naive. Remain open but not exposed. Remain loving but not overly accessible. Your strength now lies in balance. If someone asks about your next move, you can respond generally instead of specifically. If someone probes into personal details, you can answer lightly instead of deeply. This is not deception. It is discernment in practice. There will also be moments when you question yourself again. You may wonder if you are overthinking. You may wonder if you are imagining tension. But remember this, your intuition sharpened for a reason. It developed through experience. Through lessons. Through past situations where you wished you had trusted yourself sooner. You are not the same person anymore. You have learned. And learning transforms instinct into wisdom. Beloved soul, emotional discipline is your greatest shield. When you refuse to engage in gossip, you protect your reputation. When you refuse to retaliate, you protect your character. When you refuse to overshare, you protect your future plans. Silence combined with observation is not weakness. It is strategic patience. If the person whose name rests quietly in your mind is truly misaligned, time will confirm it. You do not need to force revelation. Consistency reveals truth naturally. Eventually, patterns become undeniable. And when they do, your calm response will feel justified rather than reactive. God says, "Beloved soul, do not allow awareness to turn into suspicion toward everyone." One revelation does not mean isolation from the world. Continue building strong connections with those who show loyalty through actions, not just words. The purpose of discernment is not isolation. It is refinement. You are refining your circle. You are refining your trust. You are refining your standards. And here is the deeper layer. Sometimes the identity revealed is a reminder that not everyone can access your next level. That does not mean they hate you. It means they are not aligned with your destination. Alignment matters more than familiarity. Shared history does not guarantee shared future. God says, "Beloved soul, what feels like a revelation about someone else is actually preparation for you." Awareness is rarely only about the other person. It is about strengthening your own foundation before elevation arrives. There are seasons in life where growth demands sharper discernment. Not because danger surrounds you, but because expansion is near you. And when expansion is near, alignment becomes critical. You cannot step into greater opportunities while carrying emotional confusion about who truly supports your journey. Beloved soul, reflect carefully on your recent progress. Something inside you has been shifting. Your goals feel clearer. Your standards feel higher. Your tolerance for emotional chaos feels lower. You are no longer comfortable entertaining negativity disguised as humor. You are no longer willing to shrink your ambition to make others feel secure. You are becoming more self-aware, more grounded, more intentional. And that transformation naturally reveals who is aligned with your growth and who is quietly uncomfortable with it. The identity that surfaced in your intuition is not a random name. It appeared because your spirit has been upgrading. When you upgrade internally, your sensitivity sharpens. Conversations feel different. Energies feel clearer. You start noticing who celebrates you genuinely and who responds with subtle hesitation. That hesitation is not always loud. Sometimes it is a delayed response. Sometimes it is a passive comment. Sometimes it is a subtle shift in enthusiasm. But your spirit registers it because your spirit is evolving. God says, "Beloved soul, elevation requires refinement." Not everyone who began the journey with you is meant to complete the next chapter beside you. That truth can feel uncomfortable because familiarity feels safe. But familiarity is not always alignment. Growth sometimes asks you to loosen your grip on relationships that once felt essential but no longer feel expansive. And that is not betrayal. It is transformation. Think about your upcoming opportunities. There are doors opening that require focus. There are responsibilities increasing that require emotional clarity. If your energy remains entangled in confusion about someone's intentions, your progress slows. This revelation exists to free your mental space. When you understand that someone may not be fully aligned, you stop seeking their approval. You stop oversharing. You stop looking for validation where consistency is lacking. That freedom creates mental strength. Beloved soul, your next level demands privacy. Not secrecy born from fear, but privacy born from strategy. The more focused your goals become, the more selective your sharing must become. You do not need everyone's opinion about your vision. You do not need commentary from those who have not built what you are building. You do not need energy from those who question what you feel called to pursue. This shift is not arrogance. It is alignment. God says, "The reason this message feels urgent is because your next season is closer than you think." And when momentum builds, distractions try to attach themselves quietly. Not dramatic sabotage. Not obvious opposition. Just subtle distractions. Conversations that drain you. Doubts planted gently. Comparisons introduced casually. These small interruptions accumulate over time. And awareness prevents accumulation. Beloved soul, imagine walking into a new room full of opportunity with absolute clarity about who stands behind you genuinely. That confidence changes your posture. It changes your tone. It changes your decisions. When you no longer second-guess someone's loyalty, you move boldly. But when uncertainty lingers, hesitation follows. This revelation is removing hesitation from your future. You may also notice something deeper. As you grow, your circle becomes smaller but stronger. Quality replaces quantity. Depth replaces noise. Authenticity replaces performance. And sometimes that reduction feels lonely at first. But solitude is different from isolation. Solitude is intentional space that strengthens you. Isolation is fear-driven withdrawal. You are not isolating. You are refining. God says, "Beloved soul, you are stepping into a phase where your energy must remain protected. Not guarded with hostility, but protected with discipline." Protecting your energy means being selective about conversations. It means limiting access to your private plans. It means prioritizing those who consistently demonstrate integrity. The revelation of identity is not about exposing someone publicly. It is about recalibrating access privately. There is also something else unfolding quietly. Your confidence is stabilizing. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself repeatedly. You no longer chase understanding from those who choose not to understand. That inner stability makes some people uncomfortable. Because when you stop seeking validation, you stop being controllable. And independence can challenge those who preferred the older version of you. Beloved soul, remember this clearly. Growth sometimes disrupts dynamics that relied on your self-doubt. When you remove self-doubt, certain people lose their influence. And that shift can create subtle tension. But tension is not a reason to shrink. It is confirmation that you are evolving. This awareness is not meant to make you suspicious of everyone. It is meant to sharpen your focus on those who are consistent, calm, and genuinely supportive. Invest more deeply in those connections. Nurture those relationships. Build with those who celebrate your progress. Without comparison. Those are the foundations for your next chapter. God says, beloved soul, your future requires clarity. And clarity requires courage. The courage to admit when alignment has shifted. The courage to accept that not everyone will walk beside you forever. The courage to move forward without resentment. When you release quietly, you rise peacefully. God says, beloved soul, what you are experiencing is not the beginning of conflict, it is the beginning of clarity. And clarity can feel uncomfortable before it feels empowering. When you first recognize that someone may not be fully aligned with your growth, there is a subtle sadness that follows. Not because they have done something dramatic, but because familiarity is slowly dissolving. Shared history carries weight. Old conversations carry memories. And even when alignment shifts, the emotional attachment does not disappear instantly. That is natural. That is human. But growth does not ask you to erase memories. It asks you to reposition your future. Beloved soul, realignment is not rejection. It is refinement. When your standards rise, your circle adjusts. When your awareness sharpens, your connections reorganize. And when your vision becomes clearer, your tolerance for confusion decreases. This is not harshness. This is maturity stabilizing. You are not losing someone. You are simply seeing more clearly where they stand in your journey. Some people were seasonal teachers. Some were companions for specific chapters. And some will continue walking beside you long term. Discernment allows you to understand which is which without resentment. There is something powerful happening internally that you may not fully recognize yet. You are becoming emotionally self-sufficient. In the past, uncertainty about someone's loyalty may have caused anxiety. You may have replayed conversations, overanalyzed responses, questioned your worth. But now, something is different. Instead of spiraling into doubt, you are observing calmly. That calm observation signals growth. You no longer measure your value through someone else's consistency. You measure it through your own stability. God says, beloved soul, as you detach gently from misalignment, space opens. And space is not emptiness. Space is opportunity. When energy stops flowing toward confusion, it begins flowing toward clarity. When you stop investing emotional weight in uncertainty, you gain focus for your purpose. That focus strengthens your next step. There are opportunities approaching that require mental peace. And this shift is preparing you to receive them without distraction. Think carefully about what you are building right now. Your goals are becoming more defined. Your ambitions are becoming more serious. Your discipline is increasing. You are not playing small anymore. And when someone senses that you are stepping into something greater, they either feel inspired or unsettled. Those who are inspired move closer. Those who are unsettled create subtle distance. This is not personal attack. It is emotional contrast. Beloved soul, understand this clearly, not every separation is painful. Some are peaceful transitions. Some relationships simply fade because their purpose has been fulfilled. And holding on to them out of nostalgia prevents new aligned connections from entering. You are entering a season where authenticity matters more than familiarity. You would rather have fewer genuine supporters than many inconsistent ones. That preference is not loneliness. It is leadership in your own life. God says, the emergency in this message was never about danger. It was about timing. You are approaching a breakthrough moment that requires mental alignment. Lingering confusion drains clarity. And clarity fuels momentum. If you step into your next opportunity while doubting someone's intentions, your energy divides. But when you accept realignment peacefully, your energy consolidates. Focus becomes sharper. Decisions become stronger. Confidence becomes quieter but deeper. There is also another layer unfolding. Your boundaries are stabilizing. In earlier seasons, you may have explained yourself repeatedly. You may have justified your distance. You may have tried to repair what no longer felt natural. But now, you understand that not everything requires explanation. Some adjustments are internal. Some shifts are silent. Some distances are necessary for growth. Beloved soul, when you look back at this season months from now, you will realize that this was not about identifying someone who wished you harm. It was about identifying who could not accompany your elevation. And that understanding will feel lighter than you expect. Because once clarity settles, resentment fades. You will not feel anger. You will feel acceptance. God says, your life is expanding. Expansion requires alignment. Alignment requires honesty. And honesty requires courage. You have that courage now. You are no longer afraid to admit when something feels off. You are no longer afraid to adjust quietly. You are no longer afraid to protect your peace without announcement. As you continue forward, you will notice that new conversations feel easier. New collaborations feel cleaner. New interactions feel less draining. That is the result of refined energy. When you stop forcing alignment, natural alignment appears. God says, beloved soul, now you begin to see the deeper design behind this entire shift. What felt at first like a revelation about another person is now revealing something about you. Your clarity has increased. Your emotional discipline has strengthened. Your boundaries have stabilized. And this transformation was necessary before the breakthrough could safely arrive. Breakthrough is not only about opportunity, it is about readiness. And readiness requires mental peace, strategic focus, and refined energy. You cannot carry doubt into destiny. You cannot carry confusion into expansion. You cannot carry divided loyalty into leadership. This season was removing what distracted you quietly so that what is meant for you can approach without interference. Beloved soul, think about how your perspective has changed since this awareness began. You are calmer now. Less reactive. Less eager to explain yourself. More comfortable in silence. More confident in your intuition. That stability is not accidental. It is preparation. When you step into your next level, you will need this steadiness. The doors opening ahead of you will require discernment. New relationships will require clarity. Larger responsibilities will require emotional control. And you are developing all of that right now. There are moments in life when we believe the obstacle is external, but in truth the obstacle was internal hesitation. You hesitated because you were unsure who truly supported you. You hesitated because subtle misalignment created background noise. And background noise weakens focus. But now the noise is fading. When you accept that not everyone can walk beside you forever, you stop looking back. When you stop looking back, your momentum increases. God says, beloved soul, elevation demands fewer distractions. Imagine climbing a mountain while carrying unnecessary weight. Every extra burden slows your ascent. Emotional confusion is weight. Doubt is weight. Overexposure is weight. This revelation helped you set some of that weight down. And now you feel lighter. You may not have realized it immediately, but your mental space feels clearer. Your decisions feel simpler. Your vision feels sharper. The breakthrough approaching you is not dramatic or chaotic. It is stable and intentional. It will not arrive in noise. It will arrive in clarity. And clarity must be protected. That is why this shift happened before the opportunity became visible. Timing matters. Preparation matters. Alignment matters. If the breakthrough had arrived while you were still entangled in emotional uncertainty, you might have shared too much with the wrong person. You might have doubted yourself at a crucial moment. You might have slowed your own progress seeking reassurance. But now, you are different. Beloved soul, you are beginning to understand that peace is a strategy, not a luxury. Protecting your peace ensures you protect your progress. You are not isolating yourself, you are filtering wisely. You are not becoming distant, you are becoming intentional. This distinction is powerful. Intentional living eliminates regret. Intentional boundaries eliminate confusion. Intentional focus accelerates results. God says, the breakthrough forming ahead may come in the form of opportunity, recognition, growth in income, deeper stability, or a new connection that aligns naturally with your values. But whatever form it takes, it will require confidence. And confidence cannot coexist with divided energy. You are consolidating your energy now. You are becoming centered. Notice how your priorities have shifted. You no longer entertain unnecessary drama. You no longer chase validation. You no longer overshare your ambitions prematurely. That restraint is maturity. In previous seasons, you may have spoken too early about plans still forming. You may have exposed dreams before they were strong enough to stand against criticism. But now, you are building quietly. And quiet building is powerful. Beloved soul, the identity revealed in earlier parts was not about labeling someone negatively. It was about confirming who cannot accompany your expansion. That realization prevents future disappointment. When you stop expecting certain people to show up differently, you stop feeling hurt when they remain consistent with who they are. Acceptance reduces frustration. Acceptance strengthens focus. God says, this season is not about loss. It is about alignment before acceleration. Acceleration without alignment creates chaos. Alignment before acceleration creates sustainability. What is forming for you is meant to last. And lasting success requires stable foundations. As you move forward, you will begin noticing subtle confirmations. Small wins. Unexpected progress. Increased clarity in decisions. Opportunities that feel natural instead of forced. These are signs that your energy has aligned correctly. When your inner world becomes stable, your outer world responds gradually. Beloved soul, you have outgrown environments that once felt comfortable. You have outgrown dynamics that once felt necessary. And growth often feels like distance from the past. But that distance is not loneliness. It is expansion. God says, beloved soul, this is the final layer of understanding. What began as a message about awareness has now become a transformation of identity. You are not the same person who first heard this message. In the beginning, you may have felt curiosity, uncertainty, maybe even slight tension. But now there is calm clarity. You understand that the true emergency was not about someone else. It was about protecting your evolution before it accelerated. And now you stand stronger, steadier, and far more aware of your own value. Beloved soul, this season has quietly raised your standards. Not standards rooted in ego, but standards rooted in self-respect. You now understand that access to your energy is a privilege, not an obligation. You understand that alignment matters more than history. You understand that consistency speaks louder than promises. These realizations are not temporary insights, they are permanent upgrades. And once your awareness expands to this level, it does not shrink back to old habits. There was a time when you tolerated subtle misalignment because you feared losing connection. You may have excused small inconsistencies. You may have minimized uncomfortable feelings. You may have chosen silence over clarity just to maintain peace. But now your peace is built differently. It is built on honesty within yourself. You are no longer afraid of quiet distance if that distance preserves your focus. You are no longer afraid of outgrowing dynamics that no longer support your direction. God says, "Beloved soul, sustaining this new level requires discipline." Awareness is powerful, but consistency is what protects it. Continue listening to your intuition even when situations seem small. Continue observing patterns instead of isolated events. Continue adjusting boundaries quietly instead of waiting for dramatic proof. When you remain proactive instead of reactive, your stability remains intact. Your future will bring new relationships, new collaborations, new opportunities. And this time, you will enter them with refined discernment. You will not rush trust. You will allow actions to confirm words. You will remain open-hearted but not overexposed. This balance is maturity. And maturity attracts stronger alliances. Beloved soul, notice how your emotional reactions have softened into thoughtful responses. That shift is leadership in your own life. Leadership is not about controlling others. It is about mastering yourself. When you master your reactions, no one can destabilize you easily. When you understand your value clearly, no one's subtle insecurity can shake your confidence. God says, the breakthrough that was mentioned earlier is not just external success. It is internal authority. You now carry yourself differently. You think before speaking. You evaluate before sharing. You pause before reacting. These small disciplines create powerful results over time. And because of this, your next season will unfold with less chaos and more intentional progress. This entire journey was not about identifying someone who wished you harm. It was about identifying who could not rise with you. And once you accept that truth peacefully, resentment disappears. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to confront anyone. You simply continue growing. And growth itself becomes the answer. Beloved soul, from this point forward, your standard will remain higher. You will invest energy where there is reciprocity. You will offer depth where there is integrity. You will offer trust where there is consistency. And where there is uncertainty, you will offer space instead of overcompensation. That is your new rhythm. There is also something beautiful about this completion. You are no longer searching for the name. You understand that awareness itself was the revelation. The identity that surfaced in your mind early on no longer carries emotional weight. It carries understanding. And understanding brings peace. God says, beloved soul, your path ahead is clear. Continue walking with quiet confidence. Continue building with intentional privacy. Continue choosing alignment over attachment. Your next elevation will not require drama. It will require focus. And now you have it. This is not the end of something. It is the beginning of your refined chapter. You are not guarded. You are grounded. You are not distant. You are disciplined. You are not suspicious. You are wise. And from this moment forward, you will never lower your standard just to maintain comfort again. If you are ready to walk into your next season with calm authority and protected peace, type Amen and continue moving forward in clarity and strength.